What's up, Taiwan? Thanks for joining us this weekend. I'm Joyce Tseng with the latest news. Taiwan's Marines have returned to a Taiwan-governed island in the South China Sea. That's according to an unnamed military source in local media. The country's Coast Guard has been operating on Pratas Island since the year 2000, but a Liberty Times report says Taiwan's Marines have been upping their presence there in light of China's increasing aggression in the region. The island sits in the South China Sea, where several countries have competing sovereignty claims. China claims nearly all of the sea as its own, despite having no legal basis. The military source says the addition of Marines on the island would mean advanced anti-air and anti-armor systems would also be deployed. China might have a secret motive for its air and sea incursions near Taiwan. A new report from Washington-based think tank the Heritage Foundation says Beijing is practicing how to capture territory in a potential war with Taiwan. Such air incursions are part of China's gray zone tactics to put pressure on the country. To find out more, Jaime Ocon spoke to the report's author, Brent Sadler.
Brent, I want to first start off by asking you, what kind of gray zone activities are we seeing around Taiwan and around Japan?
Two big things. One, there is this family of types of operations that people have called gray zone operations. It's not one type. It's actually several varieties of activities, and it's always changing. But if you look at it, we're in another phase of, I think, a significant change in the way the Chinese maritime forces operate and behave. The other is this positional advantage thing, and it's very tactical in one level, but when you step back, it's all about position for a potential fight in the next war in Asia.
And is this a new thing? Are these kinds of gray zone activities just starting to take place, or have we known about this for a while?
About 20 years ago, they started to pick up the activities in the East China Sea. They thought they got to an understanding with the Japanese that was beneficial to them. 2007, 2008, they start to change the terms of the deal of co-development. You see fishing fleets, aircraft intrusions, and it reaches a crisis. And then we're at a very tense but static kind of standoff since about 2012, 2013 in the East China Sea. And you see a very similar, not exact, similar kind of trajectory or pattern of behavior that's played out, and we're reaching a culminating, I guess, climax of about 10 years of activities in the South China Sea. And the big question is, where next?
And for Taiwan, what can it do to manage these kinds of threats? Should it take an approach like the Philippines and document everything on the media, or maybe like Japan and continue scrambling fighters to warn off these Chinese planes?
Taiwan is somewhere in between on both fronts. One, they are responding militarily as best they can. They have to keep that up. They need to do better. And they need to find probably new ways, like using drones rather than sending up manned aircraft. I know this is a hot topic in Taipei. The other is starting to maybe go in offense in other ways, not like fly into Chinese airspace necessarily, but challenging assumptions in Beijing that Taiwan will only be reactive and only focused in on the Taiwan Strait. And I'll leave that there. The other is the information campaign. They could also be exposing Chinese fishing fleets that are escorted by Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia and putting that out. So there are things that they too can do, not just in the Chinese press, but in multiple languages.
That was Brent Sadler, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation based in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of people have marched through New York City to campaign for Taiwan to be officially recognized by the United Nations.
Taiwan is Taiwan! Taiwan is a country! Taiwan is a country!
During the march, protesters handed out flyers explaining Taiwan's exclusion from the international body. The United Nations stopped recognizing the government in Taipei in 1971 in favor of Beijing. This year's protest coincided with the 79th UN General Assembly being held in the city. One theme of this year's event is, quote, "Leave no one behind." Members of the Free Tibet movement were also at the protest, as well as lawmakers from across Taiwan's political spectrum.
在加入联合国这一件事情，我觉得应该是大家一起集体的共识啦。那基本上就是希望说，怎么样能够让台湾参与公共事务，来为台湾人民得到最多的福祉。其实我想是大家共同的理念啦。
就是内部各政党有自己的立场嘛，那会有不同的论述，但是对外我觉得大家就是团结一致，就展现团结的力量，然后一起对外争取对我们最有利的那个局势，这样才是对的。
Storm Boris has brought torrential rains to Central Europe, killing at least 4 people in Romania. Several other countries in the region continue to battle severe flooding and have launched rescue operations. Slovakia's capital has declared a state of emergency. In Poland and the Czech Republic, authorities and residents are bracing for more floods as rivers swell, some to 50-year highs. Thousands have been forced to evacuate.
Takže je to taková bezprostřední situace, tak zatím nic jsme si sami nestihli zařídit takto.
In Myanmar, more than 230,000 people have been forced from their homes as floods and landslides wreak havoc across the country. The cause of the destruction, Typhoon Yagi, is the most powerful storm to hit Asia this year, battering the Philippines and China and killing over 260 people in Vietnam. Looking over their city, submerged in water, residents in Changhua, Myanmar, join over 200,000 others in the country, fleeing in search of higher ground after deadly floods and landslides brought on by Typhoon Yagi. With thousands stranded, Myanmar's junta chief has made a rare request for foreign aid to cope with the effects of one of Asia's deadliest storms this year. Local authorities say at least 33 people have died, but U.S.-backed Radio Free Asia says that number could be higher than 160. The Southeast Asian country has been marred by 3 years of civil war, barring many aid agencies, including the Red Cross, from reaching the over 18 million people who the United Nations says need humanitarian assistance. During last year's Cyclone Mocha, which killed at least 140 people, the military government blocked aid groups from accessing devastated areas. Now, in the wake of Typhoon Yagi, people have been fleeing by any means necessary, including by elephant. The floods have piled onto an already dire situation for people in Myanmar, leaving some with little to hold on to. So far, no comments from the UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs Coordination in Myanmar or the Red Cross on the junta's request for help. Meanwhile, people are scrambling to find safety any way they can. Howard Zhang and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus. Women have long played an unsung role in Tunisia's male-dominated fishing industry. But now with climate change impacting marine ecology, female fishers are fighting more than just the patriarchy. Reese Ayers reports.
Sarah Suisi has been fishing in the waters off Tunisia since she was a teenager. She loves being on the water, but as a woman in a traditionally male profession, it hasn't always been smooth sailing.
هو المجتمع بتاعنا ما يرحمش وما يقبلش أن المرأة تبحر، فهمت؟ وأنا كبشت وشديت صحيح وهكا حبيت نسرح نحب البحر، هوايتي البحر من الصغر.
In fact, women have long played a vital role in Tunisia's fishing industry. But a recent study by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization concluded their efforts go unrecognized and unrewarded. Female fishers have less access to training or administrative services, and so often rely on borrowing boats from male relatives. But the tides appear to be turning. This summer, the Tunisian Society for Sustainable Fishing held a workshop specifically for fisher women, who are fighting more than just the patriarchy.
انه نحن نخلق موارد رزق اضافيه للمواطنين والا للمتساكنين نتاع منطقه رواد، خاصه اللي نحن اليوم نو سوم سوجيسي ا بليزيور بروبليماتيك، باش ما نقولش بروبليم، كيما شونجمون كليماتيك، كيما نقص ريالمون الثروات هذه ا كوز دو شونجمون كليماتيك، كيما لي موفيز براتيك اللي هما موجودين كيف في ميدان الصيد والبحر. دونك هذايا الكل ما نجموش نتجاوزوه كان بحلول انترميديير والا حلول وسطيه، منها ادخال ولا ادماج المراه لانتيغراسيون دو لا for l'activité de la pêche.
Tunisian cuisine relies heavily on seafood, with its exports contributing almost $300 million to Tunisia's economy last year. But with warming waters and overfishing impacting marine populations, fishers like Suisi have concerns about the future of the industry.
هاك الفليك اللي ترى فيهم هالكبار الكل هكذا يصلحوا للبعيد عن نوامر البعيد يجيبوا في القرنيط اللي قد هيك لكن ما احترموش الموسم بالكل.
Suisi is determined to keep fishing in a way that benefits the local economy and ecology. But the profession's men need to get on board with more sustainable practices and pull for proper recognition of the efforts of fisher women, because it'll take everyone working together to change the industry. Kamashu and Reese Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
Inside a coastal industrial park in central Taiwan stands the only glass temple in the world. It was built with the goal of being environmentally friendly and of being a spiritual and sustainable oasis. Cadence Quaranta reports.
At this temple in central Taiwan, over 70,000 pieces of glass are on display. It's the first temple made of glass in Taiwan and the world. The religious site is designed to be environmentally friendly. The glass helps save energy by reflecting sunlight, meaning less need for artificial lighting. This one-of-a-kind temple also shows off Taiwan's glass-making industry.
神像也都是玻璃去创作的，所以看起来它身上会发光，因为它是感应的光线。这一个后面，它是用1400片的玻璃堆叠起来，然后这座立体的玉山，它可以结合外面的阳光。
The temple is built inside an industrial park along Taiwan's west coast, home to many factories. Construction on the temple started in 2007, and it was officially opened 5 years later. Like many temples in Taiwan, it's dedicated to Mazu, the incredibly popular goddess of the sea. But besides its glass structure, this temple differs from other Mazu temples in other ways. Fish swim in ponds outside, which help to regulate humidity and collect dust. And the temple's outer walls display photos introducing Taiwan's culture and people. The hope is that the temple can provide an environmental and spiritual oasis for residents and visitors alike.
我们希望打造一个梦，这一个梦就是在彰滨工业区可以打造一个属于台湾的唯一的绿洲，在工业区里面。
Inside an industrial park, here is a place that connects faith, culture, industry, and sustainability. Devin Tsai and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's National Association of the Deaf is planning 2 days of activities ahead of International Day of Sign Languages on September 23rd. The events will include performances, lectures, and games. A deaf Japanese artist will also share her story. Taiwan will hold other celebrations of its sign language and deaf culture this month, including a forum held by the Culture Ministry. Taiwanese Sign Language is distinct from Chinese Sign Language and developed directly from Japanese Sign Language during Japan's occupation of Taiwan. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Finally, people in Bhutan are celebrating the birth of a revered figure in Tibetan Buddhism. We bring you this footage of the colorful festivities. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.